welcome to another MTV Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and of course, Chris Diali, co-host. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron. It's a pleasure again to be here and to be doing the program. I think we have an interesting set of topics this evening. So viewers, stand by, stay with us, and we're happy to be with you again this evening.
Yeah, and to emphasize, Chris, we're in conversation tonight,
Yes.
you and I, and we have a number of interesting subjects to talk about. Most of them are local and it's of concern to common, topics that are important to the community. And also international issues, because in many ways international issues can affect us.
Of course,
You
we're
know,
part of
in
the
many
international
ways.
community.
Chris, I want to start about this question of agriculture and food security. Looking at the long-term food import reduction. But let me say it's a regional matter, Chris, because as a region, talking about CARICOM, we import between 60 and 80% of our domestic needs, foods. And keep in mind that it feeds a heavy dependent tourism sector also. 60 to 80% is a lot. Let me just give you an issue about the numbers here. What we import meats, dairy, beverages, cereal, fruits, vegetables. In the OECS, let's look at the OECS. OECS in 2023, we imported $2.1 billion worth of foods. Grenada, about $350 million worth of food. That's a lot of imports, you know. So it's cause for concern. We know that CARICOM has this a policy or an initiative. It's called 25-25. And this is to say that in 2025, they want to reduce the food import bill by 25%, by a quarter. Is this realistic? We know that it's not going anywhere in terms of the reduction. We still see these numbers rising. Chris, the question here, are we too focused on other industries? I mean, what's the reason for that? Is it climate constraints? Is it limited agricultural land? Is it other policies? The question is, how do we move to a greater investment in food production? That's the question.
Well, it is multifaceted and complex. 25-25 had highlighted Guyana as a main supplier for the 25% reduction. Mm-hmm. But we still have transport issues within the region. So the question is, Guyana may produce pineapple seed for the region, so how to get it to the region. And that is another issue that we have to grapple with. The food security issue is a serious one, especially with what is happening now with the trade wars and the changing in the environment with trade rules. Mm-hmm. It is becoming a significant issue for us in the CARICOM because, as you say, the trade deficit with the import of foods is huge in terms of the region and in Grenada in particular. Mm-hmm. In Grenada, we import everything from meats to seasoning. And the question has to be, is there some way we could talk about, get production to a level where we could sustain ourselves in some basic items that we may choose. Mm-hmm. So we can't do everything one time. So let us assume we decide to do dasheen. Yeah. How do we go about planning the dasheen production so that we could be self-sufficient and probably export? We take dasheen, then we could take yam. Mm-hmm. We could take gong provisions because they're more resistant to environmental concerns. And if we have heavy rains and so on, they're gong provisions. They could support stay on. And then the question becomes, how do we then deal with the vegetables aspect, the cabbage, the different types of cabbages, tomatoes, the lettuce, and all of these things, the bok choy, the pak choy. These are not hard things to grow, especially in our soil and what we do here. And is it that we need to get technology with the greenhouses in play so that farmers could be more resistant and more consistent with quality and the amount that they produce? So it is about production planning. It is about having conversations with farmers and directing them. Everybody can do everything. And we had to recognize that. I ain't even going to backyard farming. I'm going into farmers like yourself who have probably 3-4 acres or 12 acres, whatever you have, and say government comes to you and say, Byron, we run some tests on your soil, your area, we could specify you in dasheen and callaloo production. We could specify you in fruit production, citrus, what it is you're doing. But the conversation has not happened for years. We talk a lot. Our extension officers, unfortunately to me, don't do what they're supposed to do. They're in their own business as well. And I always say we need to revamp that whole department and put them on, commission, for want of a better word. I give you a section in Mount Morris to deal with. You have 10 farmers. Have a plan what these 10 farmers can do production-wise and support them with whatever the inputs that they need to get them going. But that is your 10 farmers. And I'm giving you targets. And if you can't make them targets, I'm paying you as I ought to pay you. You understand? Because you must be incentivized some way. And we need to revamp it. That's what I'm saying. And at the end of the day, we've been talking for many years. Because why? We import.
And
we
it's
can subsidize. Yes, it's available.
But Chris, I want to say that there's a number of things I've seen, and I want to talk about it because I think it's positive and that's good in heading in the direction we want to go. One is the recent commissioning of the Agricultural Tissue Laboratory. Now, this is scientific, this is science, but it be able to produce a significant amount of planting material to farmers, vegetables and other type of, so I think this is a good investment, and I think it's been financed via the World Bank project. This is a real good move, and I'm looking forward to this lab being able to deliver, because this would make a significant amount of more planting material available to farmers throughout the island, once it is managed and come on stream properly. The other thing that's important, because we mentioned a lot of money going to meats importation. So we heard earlier in the year the importation of small ruminants and pigs, quality, and sheep, a large quantity of hybrid of these animals for distribution, for management. So I think this is an excellent idea, not just an idea, activity that can make a difference once it's against managed property. And once Carriacou is brought into the picture, into the fore, because Carriacou has a history of small ruminants production, both sheep and goat. But what has happened over the years due to inbreeding, it's no more. We used to, not long ago, we used to be exporting these animals to Trinidad and other small islands. Now we import most of it. So Carriacou has the potential also. I'm hopeful that with this, the introduction of these new breeds, that we can see a difference, not immediately, but in a relatively short time in this area.
So let me stick a point.
Yes.
Because I applaud what you just said about the tissue lab and these breeds, these hybrids that they've run on the small ruminants. The issue to me, though, is that I give Byron 10 hybrid sheep. What is Byron's management structure to ensure that I get the result that I want from that? Breeding, taking care of the animals. Taking care of animals is not an easy thing as well.
No.
Because you have to make sure they're tested for worms, they do a lot of stuff. Then you have to go and get grass, you have to go and get the feeding. What is it we do?
The management.
Yeah, the management. So a lot of our industry
so apparently what I learned is they're starting the distribution with individuals who have proper housing, already have certain stocks, so it's not being just distributed without, there is a system and a procedure for doing this for further distribution, once they multiply. So, but I agree with you, those are critical factors because we've had such schemes before and they all went. I remember being involved in a project, I think it was in Coast Guard, where we brought in from the United States hybrid ruminants and milking goats and so on, and it's no more, of course, a long, long time ago, because there was the management.
Let's go back to the tissue lab. The tissue lab is going to give us more aspects and more planting material.
Yes, yes. At a better cost also.
Right,
so,
and
yeah.
the hope is that they are going to use the science
Yeah.
to give us greater volumes.
Yes, and quality.
And quality.
Yeah,
And resistant to certain types of pests and disease.
yeah.
No. If you come and buy 500 orange plants, orange tree plants,
Yeah.
that from the tissue culture lab,
Yeah.
do you have the land to plant the 500? Do you have the labor to deal with the
So the
500?
verification.
So my thing is, yes, it's going to be there. It's going to be on offer.
Extension has to be a critical role here.
But that's the point.
Extension,
so
extension,
I
extension.
have no
Yeah.
problem with the tissue lab.
No.
But are we going to continue in the same vein, or are we
Yeah.
going to change it?
Yeah.
And are we going to say the science, I ain't only giving you plants and a good quality, I want to know where you're planting it. And whether where you're planting it could support these plants that I'm giving you. Because soil type is critical to understanding whether you get production from these plants. Putting on 500 plants of a particular type, apart from vegetables, let's say
Yeah.
the medium to long term,
Yeah.
takes a while.
It does. So, but Chris, I mean, I see a start, but I'm agreeing with you. We have other issues to take on board there. We have to get more youth involved in agriculture. I mean, there is an agricultural project involving young people. We need more of this because that's important. But I want a number of good things too. There's been a recent increase in the price of nutmegs, 50 cents. But the farmers are saying this is not enough. It's now $3.50. There's a lot of nutmeg on the ground, you know, the motivation and the labor, Chris. The labor for the sector is a problem. Only yesterday I was speaking to a number of farmers and the labor is not there. They want to do the work, they have the investment, they have the money, but the labor is not there. So the question is, you've talked about this many times, almost every week, Chris, you talk about our labor issue and the need for us to do something about it. Bring in labor.
We offer a short-term solution.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister himself
Yeah.
said that if he
Yeah.
had his own way, get rid
Yeah.
of this
Yeah.
work permit issue and bring in labor in a
Yeah.
structured manner
Yeah.
from different
Yeah.
countries that
Yeah.
could assist
Yeah.
in agriculture and in construction, because we
Yeah.
have a serious, not only shortage,
Yeah.
but a mentality to work
Yeah.
in those areas.
Yeah.
Guys don't want to work more than 3-4 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And it just cannot work.
And one of the farmers was saying, Chris, is that look, with the new minimum wage, he's comfortable with this. But what the minimum wage policy did not specify is the amount of hours. It didn't say 4, it didn't say 5, it didn't say 6. It says minimum wage.
No, they had some hours for
They had some hours?
agricultural
Okay.
workers, yes.
But this
Memory
farmer
serves.
indicated that there was no.
But I don't think the hours is, I think it's 6 hours or 8 hours, like 6 hours or something like that. It's less than the normal.
If you get 4 or 5, you're doing really good.
Yeah.
Chris, we have to move, but clearly that's an area I'll be watching and monitoring because it's so crucial now. We tend to focus on it when there's a crisis. When there was the 9/11,
But
when
probably
they
we
had
need a
COVID,
crisis
and
to
now you have
get
this
some action.
Trump 2.0. So Trump, that is causing that. But as we talk about Trump, Chris, the impact on regional trade, you mentioned this a few months ago that with the new, not just the tariff, but with the charges on Chinese built and registered ships in the United States. But my information is there is a temporary freeze on that. That's
Yeah.
not going to happen right now.
That's correct. We have, the latest information is that he has put a hold on it because they have recognized that if
Yeah.
they do that, a lot of business in Miami particularly is going to falter, because a lot of the ships, take the cruise ships, their port is Miami. They start a lot of the cruises from there. Tropical and a lot of them have major investments there. That's where the head office. A lot of things is going to happen. But I think the bigger impact for me with Trump and his protectionist policy through these tariffs is the trade war between him and China will continue, or they will fight. But we get the backlash in our countries, in these small countries, and what happens to our region. But I think it has opened the eyes to our CARICOM leaders, and that's a good thing. In every crisis, there's an opportunity. The opportunity we see in here is that we know forging ties with places like Africa. We were just told today that visa restrictions have been removed for us to go to Ghana and another country. I can't remember if it's a Chinese city. We are looking south now to see what's available in the countries in South America and how we could start trading more significantly with them. So it has created an opportunity for us in the region, I think, because of our proximity, to now start looking at other countries where we can get our supplies, whether it be food, whether it be construction material, whatever it is, electronics, whatever, instead of the US. Because the US policy on tariffs doesn't seem to, is going to be abated. The US is trying to bring a lot of industries back in, manufacturing in particular. And to me, the US economy have moved from manufacturing to a service economy more so than manufacturing. And I don't think, even though manufacturing comes back to the US, they could compete with countries like China and India and so on.
Japan.
And there was a release recently, an interview with one of the guys who have business in China. And he was making this point. He said, it is not about the cost of labor. He says, far from it. Yes, they're competitive. He said, but the major issue is the expertise. And he brought this point. He said, to manufacture delicate equipment, laptops, cell phones, and so on, you need people with certain skills in tools, high-tech tools, and its use. You say in China, they have so much people that they could fill a football field with these people, whereas the US can't even fill a room.
Chris, we have to take a short break. Come back, we'll continue this conversation. Yeah. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back following this commercial.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for Life and Allied Laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for Life and Allied Laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Grenada, get ready for the most anticipated kids event on Saturday, 19th April, Easter Saturday.
They not like us.
It's the Easter Kids Extravaganza.
Easter Kids Extravaganza.
Monrouge Playing Field, 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Enjoy rides, slides, obstacle courses, rock climb, bouncy castle, go-kart, and much, much more.
Mom, I love this.
Then from 6 p.m. we move stateside for special performances. Come see the mind-blowing illusions and mesmerizing dancers from the overseas acts. Soca performances from Guana, Shekwan, Black Barbie, and Young Mad. Admission kids only $5. Adults $10. Parents, guardians, get the kids ready. Easter Saturday, Monrouge Playing Field. Something no kid wanna miss. It's the Easter Kids Extravaganza.
Welcome back, viewers. You're on to MTV Community Forum. Chris, before the break, we were talking about the implication of Trump 2.0. One of the issues there, Chris, is the air travel. We've seen a 12% down in travel in March. Less bookings are being reported. International travel is down by 12%. And another aspect of this, and this has been raised, if we look at our carnival, for example, where we have a wash of thousands of our national coming home, many with green cards, many with permanent visa. The information coming out of New York is that there's a lot of less booking. A lot of nationals, particularly those with green cards, are saying this thing is too risky right now. Let me stay quiet. So this can have implications for us as far as carnival revenue also, and the wider tourism aspect, because a lot of tourists, most of the ships emanate from Miami, and a lot of the stories you see here comes from other countries, Canada, Europe, and elsewhere. And they need to enter into the United States with the kind of visa restrictions and policy now operating. This can have implications in a wide way.
Yeah, the trade report is indicating that there's a drop-off in bookings, primarily to the U.S., not outside of the U.S.
That's correct.
So we still have our flights, and we have Delta putting on flights in the peak season in December. So our region doesn't seem to be impacted as yet, but the impact is going to come where an ordinary tourist who wants to take a flight and spend a week or so in Grenada has to look at their pocket. And if the U.S. is in this trade war with China and the cost of living increases, the possibility of booking flights to come for festivities like Carnival and so on may be reduced. Because the U.S. airlines are dropping prices to entice people, and they're not seeing the tick. What they're seeing, and as a result, what they're doing now is canceling their volume of flights going in and out from particular regions. So they're reducing their flight volumes into a region with the prices, and they're hoping that will work. But the reduction of the volume of flights going in is going to impact the industry significantly.
But you also have, how you call it, not warnings, but you have bulletins issued by countries. I think Portugal was one, another one, issuing warnings about traveling to the United States.
Yes, Canada in particular. Canada issued, and the Canadians took a serious line of not, facilitating U.S. goods and products. They don't want to drink Coca-Cola. Their people have taken some strong stance. Of supporting American-made products. Whether it will last and how long it will last, we shall see. But it starts impacting the airline industry already.
That's correct.
So we in our region have to be careful and look at our, our airlift and the flights coming in, and how much and how could it impact our tourism.
So as we talk about, Chris, the cruise ship season ends, I think, next week. Last ship due or something like that. But clearly it's a positive. I mean, the tourism authority reporting a up season. But are we over-reliant on cruise ship and short-stay visitors? Are we investing, the question is, adequately in what we call a sustainable community tourism, those kind of models? Are we doing sufficient of those, Chris? And I just want to add here that the governor, Timothy Antoine, was speaking recently, and what he said is that he's saying that we need to reimagine our tourism model. And what he was pointing out, a number of areas. He was encouraging more business visitors as a policy to attract more business visitors, attracting more professional athletes, that sports tourism thing. We need to be more assertive in that area. He's also mentioned that there's 980 million persons that work from home. So he's talking about creating a hub for digital nomads, That is a possible. And finally, he's talking about attracting more universities and students. So he's saying that we need to think outside of the box now and look at other models.
And the governor is correct. As I was saying, in every crisis, there's opportunity that presents itself. And reimagining what we do in tourism, our sun, sea, and sand, is something that we still need to keep. But we need to look at the other areas where there is opportunity, as we talk about students and so on, and we talk about the nomads, the digital nomads.
It's a lot of
providing, providing facilities and space for them to work outside of their country.
That's the point.
And and they will give us, they will spend money, they will buy services, they'll buy goods and products, and facilitate them. So even health tourism, tourism and health areas. I mean, countries like Costa Rica and those countries in South America are way ahead of us. But there is opportunity. So we need, as a region, to relook the whole thing. But I want to go back to a very fundamental, basic thing. We just presented our budget in March. With all that's happening now in the trade and economic environment, our leaders in government and our technocrats have to now sit and see how these things can impact what we predict and budget for 2025.
Yeah, you had to revisit it.
You have to revisit it. And we talk about downside risks and so on. What are the risks now, and which sectors are it going to impact more so than what we presented in March? And this has to be done immediately and make adjustments in our environment to facilitate at least getting to the target.
You know, it's a dynamic situation.
Yeah.
It's fluid.
And the thing with Trump 2.0, every day you're hearing something new.
But just tonight, I heard that the Grenada embassy is listed as one to be shut down.
Not even the embassy, the consulate.
The consulate, you know.
And he shut it down. Embassies around the world, I think 21 consulates.
Yeah. So Chris, it's interesting. You know, I last week we learned that the Prime Minister, is out of the state. He's visiting Qatar and attending an ICAO facilitation conference. This has to do with aviation, you know. And on social media, there were conversation about his frequent travels, you know, comparing it to what's available in the Eastern Caribbean. Other prime ministers in the Eastern Caribbean, clearly his model, but and therefore raising a question to what is this travel necessary. But Chris, what I was able to determine from my investigation is that that this meeting would be attended by stakeholders, including ministers of tourism. Prime Minister is the Minister of Tourism, so he's entitled to attend this meeting. And you'll have the Aviation Authority chief experts and leaders in the sector. So I think it is the PM, in my view, PM responsibility to attend this meeting because he represents tourism, notwithstanding it's a technical meeting. But yes, there are other ministers of aviation attending this important conference in Qatar.
The issue to me here, I don't have a problem with the PM's travel.
Yeah.
Once it can bring returns
to
us in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about this aviation thing. I've heard on the news that MOU was signed, I think.
That was in Saudi Arabia, but probably that's on their way to Qatar. You know.
So, I mean, it will be interesting to hear the report of the Prime
comes
Minister
out
when
of
he
it.
returns. Now, we're trying to develop direct flights to Africa and Ghana and those places. And we're trying to expand how we get travel into the region from those areas.
Chris, hold on. We're having a slight technical issue, so we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
At Bailey's Funeral Home, we are always ready to respond to your call.
And we are here, whether you have a question or need comforting words.
We help to make what is usually a difficult time less challenging for you and your family.
By taking care of your loved ones, treating them with honor, dignity, and respect as we would our own family.
We assist you in making all the necessary arrangements for that final goodbye and help you along the way.
We are committed to you, providing you with the best service, quality products at the lowest prices.
We stand with you from beginning to end as a pillar of strength, comfort, and support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for choosing Bailey's Funeral Home, the perfect tribute any family can afford.
Welcome back, viewers. We just had a slight technical problem, but we're on. Chris, you were making a comment before we had a short cut there concerning the Prime Minister's travel, and what you're expressing is that what's important is not the travel. Travel is important, but it must deliver something, you know. But are you satisfied with the level of reporting you get and from these travels?
No, we're not. I mean, yes, the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. He could travel anyway. He could promote the country and what we offer and so on, which I'm quite certain he's doing.
Yeah.
But we don't get the reports as to what happens when he comes back from these trips. What has the country gained or not gained? And politically, now I'm moving the shifting the conversation. The political opposition parties and so on, they question compared to the last government and their level of travel and how he is traveling, it seems excessive. And the issue has to be, is the country paying for that, or are these trips being supported by donations from countries that want him to be wherever to discuss? So there's a lot of detail that is not open to us to critique it. But I think I have no issues with the PM going wherever he has to go. The problem for me is that
the outcome.
And what has the country gained?
Yeah, because these are expensive. Because you have the chief of staff. You have, I see Nazim Burke is there. I see other officials. So let's see. Let's wait his return and see. Chris, local traffic on vehicles. This is always on. What we seen in the last month, we had a further 321 vehicles being imported. Of course, vehicle business is good business. The banks are making money. The dealers are making money.
And the government.
The government is making money. The oil and gas people are making money. Mechanics. I mean, it's good for the economy, so to speak, but the congestion, Chris, and be prepared, Chris. You live in the South. Granans Road is going to be facing, as the Prime Minister reported, it's going to be dug up for the laying of pipes, lines. So that congestion.
UK SIF project.
Yes, UK SIF project. So be prepared, Chris. The question is the Transport Commission effective? Is the policy?
Let's take the UK SIF project. The UK SIF project has already designed as part of the project, the traffic issues. And Granans, when they start working on the Granans, they want to take from, I think, Point Saline come forward and do it in phases like that. You'll have one lane open and the other lane closed as they do their work. Now, the issue is how do we divert traffic, whether it's through Granans Valley, whether it's through, Jangley, what are the alternative routes that can be used? And you have to always keep in mind emergency situations. So if there's an emergency in the south, how do the emergency tenders, whether it's fire or ambulance, get to and from? So there's a lot of things that...
A day is 24 hours. Do we have the equipment to work at nights, for example?
That's right. So one of the considerations is that when this project started, it would be a lot of night work. Right? And not during the peak hours. So that will help with it.
Minimize the congestion.
So they have considered it because when the major consultant for the project, Mr. Nigel John, presented to the chamber, they did discuss with the chamber that there are a number of avenues they're looking at to reduce the congestion when that project starts with movement of the vehicles to and from the south. But the bigger issue, what is government doing with the import of vehicles? And there's a ironic thing here, Byron. Government is pushing us to go EV. They have removed duties on electric vehicles.
Is it 50% or
50 and 100, depending on what it is.
Type of vehicle.
I think the hybrids is 50 and the full electric is 100. The issue is here the government have concessions for increasing EV and bringing in our EVs, but yet still the amount of fuel vehicles, combustion engines that come in, and the duties that the government collect is like, where do I get a balance? A government making a lot of money in duties and then making none on EV, and they're pushing EV. So you're seeing the conundrum there that the government is putting itself in. And I think the biggest issue is the trucks. We have no EV trucks as far as I know coming in. There's more passenger vehicle, buses, and so on. And the issue has to be, how is the government going to approach this? You hear conversations about dropping the 10-year
to 5 years.
To 5 years for used vehicles coming in. but the majority of vehicles coming into Grenada is new.
New.
I think Huggins just launched their new EV.
Yes.
Right?
Where's that vehicle manufactured?
I'm not certain, but
Okay.
the brand name is MG.
MG.
Right?
Is that a British MG? No,
I'm not sure. But the biggest producer of EVs in the world right
China.
now is China and Korea.
Korea, yeah.
And they have
Yeah.
top of the line vehicles.
Yeah.
So I mean, the transport issue is complex, and the Commission is there trying its best. Let's see what happens.
What happens? Chris, we have some environmental development disputes, let me call it that. Let me start with Mount Hartman. That I'm to understand, and this is what reported by the Coral Grove Group, which is a advocacy group, a community group. They reported that, well, what we know, there's a lease arrangement with a businessman to lease a part of Mount Hartman, and the lease arrangement they indicated is specific only for a marina. But they have reported that what is taking place there is the construction of an industrial boatyard, which the lease doesn't provide for, and this provides for termination without compensation, since the owner of the business there is not moving in line with the lease arrangements, and they are complaining about the destruction of mangroves and the pristine Mount Hartman Bay, and expressing concern about the future of this important area and so forth. But what's your take on this? You've heard about this development?
Well, the PDA have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
We had the one up in
Woodford.
Woodford.
And let me say that the Woodford, this project has finally stopped. There's no work taking place there. I can confirm that. I was there. And I'm to understand that the environmental impact assessment is ongoing. There's been meetings with the community. And so this is good. So the question is that this should have been done from the start.
And the Mount Hartman one is one. I mean,
Yeah.
when they had other developers coming in Mount Hartman, other companies,
Yeah.
EIA was a big part of Mount Hartman because
Yeah.
of the dove and other issues,
Yeah.
the mangrove and
Yeah.
so on.
Yeah.
And most of these companies had put forward, projects how they could preserve and do what they're doing there within what they want to do. But an industrial boatyard is a completely different kind of animal compared to a marina, where you do some level of servicing, but not on an industrial level. So that is something that, of course, the PDA needs to look at and enforce what the law is. And I want to bring this up, and passionately about this one. Yeah. You know, we have a little purple structure, and I'm saying we because I live in Fort Judy.
Okay.
That's been on the side there to the entrance of Fort Judy.
Yeah.
The PDA have given this guy notice many times that he's illegally there. The guy continues to operate, and I haven't seen the PDA move in a forceful way to move the guy. And we had a recent incident there where one of the people who come there to patronize the guy blocked one aspect of Fort Judy Road, and we couldn't get in and out because of the traffic congestion there. Could you imagine we have an emergency in Fort Judy and we have an ambulance that have to come in, and we have that congestion right in the entrance? And we have complained about this numerous times. We will wait till something bad happens, and then we're going to look to move. This is a gentleman that will be given 2 notices and rip them down. And the PDA doesn't seem, we take down a person in Grand Anse, we stop Woodford. What is it about this guy that defies what PDA does and what they have the power to do with under their act and with the police? We have complained to the police about the traffic congestion and so on. Nothing is happening. And this is why in Grenada, we tend to say that we're lawless when it comes to traffic situations. We do what we want until something bad happens, unfortunately, and then we try to put humps everywhere to slow down people. And it is really an issue where we as a people need to look at ourselves and what we do and don't do, and say, boy, we contributing to the situation.
So is the Development Authority losing credibility? I mean, that's the question. Because, I mean, not to labor the Woodford thing, but this should not have happened in the first place.
And you have to...
In that there are procedures,
Byron,
yeah.
we have to say it.
Yeah.
Is there political interference with the PDA and what they have to do? Because politicians are famous. You don't have to be this government, other governments as well. When the police have to do certain things and the PDA, they get a call and say, hold, I mean,
so what's happening with the Port Highway?
That's right.
For example.
That's a good example.
Notice was issued for the illegal, because that's what it were, occupiers of the Port Highway.
That's
because
what it is.
Because it is dangerous for the operation of the port. But there's no toilet facilities there. It creates major congestions. All the reasons, and they were issued by the board, by the authority.
And the question is, the $100 million question is, who have stopped the PDA?
Clearly it's the government, nobody else, obviously. But how do you get development when you have, if you're counting votes, then you calculate that if I take this action, I'm likely to lose favor.
One politician in the South years ago said, Chris, all of them is a voter.
Chris, I didn't want to mention politics tonight, but you brought it up, Chris. I'm learning tonight, in fact. We learned that there's a transition in St. David's. There's a new that Oliver Joseph has relinquished. He's given it up. And there is a new caretaker. It's a businesswoman, a young woman, Forsyth. I don't remember the name, but that's a good sign from the NNP. And I'm also to understand in the Northwest, yes, the Northwest, that's the constituency of Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, that there are a series of meetings taking place and the purpose of introducing or in molding or in a replacement. I've heard so anyway, so that would be a good thing. I mean, what we're seeing is transitioning, younger persons being introduced to the party.
Well, I don't think NNP has a choice, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because when you look at their profile and who are there, Dr. Mitchell is, I don't want to say the age, but Dr. Mitchell has been around a long time and probably there's a need for the transition. Similarly, in St. David's, and then you could talk about Mr. Bowen's constituency as well, where he last, that is Montagu area, St. George, Northeast, I don't know what it is. But the issue is, there are a lot of people that need to transition. Even look at Clarice Morris Cohen in Victoria, who have held that seat and consistently won it, needs to transition as well, because you need to bring in younger people, and the quicker they do it and introduce these people to the voting populace, people could understand where NNP is going and with who and why, and so on. So from where I sit, I think it's something that must happen. And it's good to see that they're trying to get it done early on the assumption that our Prime Minister has the date in the pocket, as we always say.
Back pocket.
Yes. But it's important that they make the transition and do it as quickly as possible, because people need to get these new candidates, get to know them, get to understand who they are and what they are about. And I always say, Byron, in our politics, one of the greatest things that is missing, we don't ever question these candidates to find out who they are, what are their intentions, and what they plan to do. So no debate happens. And they never open up themselves to questions, and difficult questions. Not easy. If you want to represent me, I must give you difficult questions, and you must answer me whether you could or not, but you must get it. We don't debate.
Reasonable, Chris. So let's see how this develops. Chris, we're still talking about the development issues. Solid waste and landfill. Chris, it's an area I have concern about. I was only yesterday passing through the Perseverance area. And from the road, I mean, this is, I don't know, maybe 50 yards from the road, close to the roads. You can see where the landfill is overflowing, falling over. That tells me an issue of capacity. When we had the personnel from the Solid Waste Authority, they did indicate that the lifespan expectancy of Perseverance is not very long. But what I saw yesterday was that it's overflowing. So the question is, how do we manage this? The fact that we also learned that we send to the landfill, and they have these huge scales there, so we know the volume that's going in. And in the last year, it was 62,000 tons. It's a lot. That's almost half a ton per individual a year. Additional to that, we learned that 40%, almost half, 40% of what goes to the landfill is biodegradable stuff. In other words, stuff that could be left alone or elsewhere, or stored elsewhere or plowed back into the soil or wherever. It doesn't have to go to Perseverance, we heard that there are some small initiatives like separating plastics and stuff, but that's minor. That's not going to do the trick. So to what extent are we learning or making preparations, rather, making assessment for the future? Where are we going to put this stuff?
Well, let's take the plastics. Because
Yeah.
I know Bureau of Standards, Solid Waste had a new machine donated to them that could grind plastics and
Yeah.
crush it and get it
Yeah.
down to. So if we start dealing with the plastics issue, that may help in terms of volume. But if 40% of our garbage going to Perseverance is organic,
Yeah,
let's take coconut,
yeah.
right?
The
We have a
house
huge industry in Grenada with coconut.
It's growing too.
Right, where we cut walnuts and bottle it and people partake and so on. Nothing wrong with that, that's good. What happens to the coconut? The spent coconut, the shell, the green ones. Is there some project where we can look to see how we could biodegrade that? Is some way we could cut it up? Is there some way we could do something? Just after, remember after Ivan, we brought in a crushing machine for the vehicles.
Yeah.
And we had bales of these things done and sent out
Yeah.
to recycle.
Yeah.
So I think the big issue is recycling for a small country like ours, but it is at what level and what stage. But I want to go back to the most important thing, the mine. I always say, and I say it with no apology, we are nasty set of people. Right?
Chris, let me give you a chance to change that. I mean, Chris, right. I mean,
we litter, and Ghanaian's Beach is a classic because I walk Ghanaian's Beach once a week.
Okay.
And when you see the garbage, I said this on a program before, right here, the bin is about 5-10 meters away, and they would leave everything on the beach. What they come and consume, plastic, this, that, and so on, fast foods, and so on. And they won't put it in the garbage. So that is a mentality that we have that we need to break. Throwing things out of the windows of a vehicle, out of buses. And when you're, what you're doing is, oh, we're creating work. Creating work for who? Would you do the same thing in your home? And this is an issue that we have in terms of our mentality to garbage and what we do. Because we're not a people that, and we can't blame the little children, you know, because we learn, pick it up, we sing, pick it up when you drop it down in classroom, there's a song. So our young people are taught, children in primary school, that they must not litter.
Yeah.
Young. But yet still, when we become adults and teenagers, we forget all
What was the song? Bits of paper.
That's
bits
right.
of paper.
That's right,
Chris, but part of it is our lifestyle, Chris, consumerism. You
Yes.
know, what we imported. Look at it. All the containers you see coming in on the port, a significant aspect of it ends up in Perseverance. We heard that the police reported this. You know, I think Minister Andy Williams had this initiative, and they determined that there were 10,000 derelict vehicles around the island. 10,000. And they were able to collect 1,000.
Out of 10?
Out of 10. So 9,000 remain.
So another call from a politician came.
So
we have roadside garages for
we
years.
have a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, I'm concerned about the sustainability of this, our
okay,
consumption.
Let's go back to Perseverance.
Yes.
Where in Grenada would you look to locate another dump site? Everybody will complain if you move from Perseverance to somewhere else. You're coming in my area, I don't want stinkness, I don't want the fire to happen. Where would we go? We have limited
land space.
So we could move it. We can't move it anyway. So Perseverance, if we decide to stay there,
but if it's at the max, if it can't accommodate
we may have to do
anymore.
more cells, but we have to change the volume of things that come to Perseverance.
That's correct. That's where
Plastics,
the strategy.
organic.
That's where the strategy
Motor
has
vehicles,
to be.
whatever, and recycle and send them out.
There has to be a major strategy investment in this
And I think
area.
Solid Waste have started with all the initiatives.
But it needs more resources,
Of
Chris.
course.
And that has to be a priority because we're going to be stuck.
Of course.
Because it's overflowing as I speak, Chris. And let the media go and look at it.
Yeah, so that's something
it's overflowing.
We have to have a national conversation on and try and, we're talking about transformation?
Yeah.
That is a transformative
Not only that,
idea.
but Chris, there's other issues. There's been a fire burn. I was speaking to a resident, Concord, only this evening, and he indicated that it's 3 weeks now there's been a fire. Indicated that he has to wrap his head around a sheet at nights, that he can't breathe, that the asthmatic, the population in that area is rising based on a small survey they did there, you know. So the impact and the effects on the community, immediate community there, is something else to
And
look
these
at.
tires-
So how do we manage the tires? Look,
Yeah, these
talk about
tires are deep
you know, one
down.
of the things that we import a lot of used tires, thousands and thousands, and they have a very short lifespan, and they end up
in
that's
perseverance.
also recycling, and from time to time somebody catch them on fire,
Yeah,
creating
and remember,
havoc.
tires is something that could be ground,
Exactly.
right, and used back in the asphaltic mix on
And,
our
and,
roads.
and in road construction.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we, again, this is investment
Yeah.
that is required, and technology and
Yeah.
the chemistry to understand
Yeah.
what we do.
Chris, some positive things here now. We heard from the Governor General again, the Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Bank, that he was reporting that it's 48 years now since the EC dollar has been pegged to the US dollar at 270. And he was saying that our dollar, the EC dollar, remains very strong and stable. It's a source of pride for the Union, Eastern Caribbean State. He said that at the moment, the backing is 98%, with foreign reserves at $6 billion and growing. What does it mean to the average person, Chris?
Well, it means that there is stability in terms of your dollar. Recently, the President of Guyana just announced that they're making moves to strengthen their dollar against the US. And he expects with their GDP growth, they should have that in short order. What that does to us is trade. When you have to buy foreign exchange to pay for your goods, suppliers out of the US or wherever you're getting your goods from, it is steady. And you know what you're going to pay because the dollar is fixed against the foreign currency. So that is a positive thing for the region in that businesses know that, first of all, they could buy US to trade and pay, and it's a fixed rate. So that backing of the Eastern Caribbean dollar against the US is significant for us to facilitate trade and to bring down the road how we do what we do. Currencies like the TT dollar, the Jamaican dollar, and the Guyanese dollar, who have been fluctuating up and down in terms of their value against the US, creates havoc for trade and the supply chain. So let's take Trinidad, for example. Trinidad have a lot of restrictions on US. Even using a credit card, you could only use 150 US, buy on this credit card. There's a shortage of US. They claim business people have numerous issues to pay their suppliers, and it causes issues with your production and getting supplies on time. So for us in the region, we could boast about that in the OECS because it has been stable for 40-something years.
48.
And it has been well backed. And that policy have never changed in terms of the Monetary Council and what they do. So you have to give kudos to the ECCB and the Monetary Council and how they have managed our currency. And that is critical for us in the region because if that goes, the cost of things goes with it as well.
Chris, we're running out of time, but one final thing I'd like to mention is that I saw in the news, and I want to compliment the governments of this. And Chris, when the government perform, we need to talk about it because it's important. A new kitchen was commissioned at the General Hospital, state of the art, high tech, like all the stainless steel, and I thought that was just great when I saw this, Chris, because we have to see health and wellness. An important dimension of it is the nutrition. So I want to compliment the government for this move. It's a worthwhile investment. This is what we want to see. This is transformative.
Yeah, and if of nothing else, new equipment like that is supposed to increase the efficiency and quality of stuff coming out of the kitchen of the General Hospital. Because patients who are diabetic, hypertensive, and have peculiar aspects for meals, whether they're a cancer patient or not, and if the kitchen can provide that in a more efficient manner, more controlled and high quality, that is a plus and a big plus for the government in what they have done there, because the nutrition aspect of your recovery in a health situation is critical. So yes, we have to give them kudos for that.
Chris, that time went awesome, and viewers, that's all the time we have, Chris. There's a lot more we can talk about, like the sargassum weed, what's happening with that, but we don't have time. Viewers, thank you for being with us on behalf of MTV Television, the staff here. We want to thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.